Feiyu-Tech have produced many gimbals for the GoPro, such as the fantastic handheld G6 we've taken a look at in a previous video, and they continue to set the benchmark for others to follow in this regard. Their WG wearable gimbals are just as popular, and now we have their latest update, the WG2X. It's clear that Feiyu-Tech have already cracked the gimbal market, yet they continue to develop and refine their systems, adding extra features as they progress, and that's what we have here in the WG2X. There's no fancy carry case with the WG2X though, instead we find a tough foam box which is rather neat, albeit a little bulky, and can be opened to reveal the gimbal itself alongside some accessories, all nestled into place thanks to precision cut cavities. If you've used a gimbal in the past, you'll be right at home here with a very familiar overall design. Thanks to the use of ABS plastic alongside its aluminum skeleton, it's relatively lightweight too at only 238 grams, which is rather important for a wearable gimbal, with a seriously robust and hard-wearing structure. So at the bottom we have the main body of the system, and there's not too much to get confused with here. A power and mode button on one side, with a status LED to the front, and alongside some branding to the rear we find an additional two buttons, used to control the attached GoPro camera thanks to the unit's built-in wireless connectivity, which we'll take a look at shortly. Otherwise we have a small charging LED and a rubber flap covering a micro USB charging port to finish off the design. This port is used alongside the included cable to charge the built-in battery. Yes, the battery is fixed inside the unit and not replaceable, which is the one drawback to this system, although it is rated to last 2.5 hours after a full charge, which is quite respectable considering the small size. Most of that power is obviously fed to the three brushless motors just above that help stabilise an inserted action camera across all three axes. These lightweight motors feature full 360-degree rotation to either side, while maintaining high torque and strong power, yet Feiyu-Tech have still managed to reduce the power consumed, hence helping with the overall battery life. The gimbal design is very similar to that found on the G6 handheld system, in that the roll axis is placed at an angle, allowing the user a clear view of the action camera's rear screen while in use, which comes in more handy than you'd imagine. Nevertheless, these attach to the action camera cradle, which is compatible with most GoPro Hero cameras or any other action camera of a similar size, and we even find a GoPro Session compatible mount also included within the package, which is a nice added touch. Unfortunately, we still have to deal with screws on the WG2X, although it's not as painful as previous models. Once loosened, we can slide in our camera and tighten into place, quick and easy. If you lose any screws, a spare set are conveniently provided too. And once in place, again as with the G6, we can loosen a dial by the roll motor to adjust the arm and balance the camera as much as possible. It doesn't have to be completely perfect, but it will help reduce any unnecessary stress on the motors, so the more balanced the better. Unlike the G6 though, there's no way to provide power to the camera, which isn't such a bad thing considering the gimbal's built-in battery, but when installed this way you'll notice the camera's power button is not accessible, so it's best to install with the tilt motor closer to the camera's lens, keeping the lens in the center of the unit, as well as keeping access to the GoPro's power button. Also note that the entire system is splash-proof, with that rubber door sealing the charging port of course, so it's perfectly safe to use outdoors in the rain or around the pool, but it cannot be completely submerged or used underwater whatsoever. Now, considering this is a wearable system, it needs to be easy to mount the unit to other objects or to your person, right? Well, underneath, alongside some rubber feet, which ensure it grips and stays in place when used on a flat surface, we also find a single metal 1/4" 20 thread, which is the only way to mount the entire system. This can be used to attach the system to a tripod, for instance, with a mini tripod even being included within the package for that matter, which once attached creates stability and works quite nicely. We even receive a GoPro adapter in the package, which allows the user to attach the system to any mounting option within the GoPro mounting ecosystem, and it works perfectly well. Nevertheless, with power applied, the gimbal quickly calibrates itself and is instantly ready for use, stabilizing across all three axes. No surprises there. We can then use the mode button to cycle between different pan, follow and lock gimbal modes, locking and releasing different motors according to your shooting style, with a bright LED on the front making it easy to quickly determine which shooting mode you are currently in. A triple tap also rotates the gimbal 180 degrees for some selfie shooting, all modes replicated in the G6 handheld system. Feiyu-Tech have pretty much perfected the system at this stage, so it all works as expected, wonderfully well. Thanks to the use of freely turning 360-degree motors, the system can be used in any orientation too. Horizontally, vertically, even in an underslung mode, making the unit seriously flexible when it comes to attaching to objects or to your person. The various modes do take a bit of memorization, and the timing of the multiple button presses can take a little getting used to as well, but it's enough to get the job done and soon becomes second nature. Recall that Wi-Fi button on the rear of the system? Well, with a long press we enable the unit's wireless connection. This provides the ability to connect the gimbal to the Feiyu-Tech smartphone app, and once connected we can remotely control the gimbal and reorientate the camera, which could be useful if the gimbal is mounted to a tripod or other such accessory. You can also change some more advanced settings, but in all honesty it's not something that I would really use very often, other than to update gimbal firmware. What's more useful though is the ability to use the app to wirelessly connect the GoPro camera to the gimbal. It's a one-off connection process, but unfortunately even though my Hero 7 was connected to my smartphone, I just couldn't get the Feiyu-Tech app to connect. So after a few attempts I gave up in frustration. Nevertheless, once successfully connected, this should allow us to use the first button as a shutter button, providing the ability to start and stop capture, while the second button would switch the camera between photo and video modes, all without having to touch the connected GoPro camera. A useful feature, if you can get it working of course. So when it comes down to pure performance, Feiyu-Tech continue to demonstrate why they set the benchmark with action camera gimbal systems. All gimbal modes work perfectly well, with very little delay in the camera adjusting its angle to your movements. Of course, the GoPro Hero 7 does have its own hyper-smooth stabilisation system too, but I've found I achieved better results by switching this off and letting the gimbal do all the work. Besides, hyper-smooth doesn't work well at all for panning shots, and even when used in this fashion, the gimbal performed perfectly well. No issues at all, producing smooth video footage, while the motors are silent enough to let the camera capture good audio at the same time. Being a mountable unit, it's easy enough to attach the unit to objects or to your person for some smooth yet immersive shots. At the same time, it still provides the ability to attach a hand grip to use it in a handheld fashion too. The best of both worlds. In effect, what I'll see with the WG2X is a cut down version of the G6. We have a very similar gimbal design, angled for easy screen viewing, and it performs to a very high standard. Flawless in fact. It's not without its downsides though. A built-in, non-removable battery limits your shooting time to around 2.5 hours, unless you carry an external battery pack of course. That aside, with the wireless connectivity and flawless gimbal performance, if you're after a more mountable and more versatile gimbal, then the WG2X is certainly worth a look.